There are games you fall for immediately, slipping into their worlds effortlessly. Then there are those games that take time to appreciate, not because they're bad, but because they need to grow on you. Hey everyone, today we're diving into 10 good games you hate at first. Starting off with number 10, let's talk about Death Stranding. When it came out, a lot of people called it a walking simulator, and they were not wrong. Compared to Metal Gear Solid series, which has more familiar structure, Death Stranding is just plain weird, especially in the beginning. In the first few hours, you're mostly just walking around delivering stuff, and some tools just take a while to unlock. If the game had come a bit later, people might have called it the COVID FedEx Guy Simulator. And honestly, that's kind of what it feels like at first. You spend a lot of time thinking, is this really it? Just walking around? And many people quit early on. But eventually you start building roads and zip lines and getting around becomes quicker, thankfully. And number 9 is Days Gone. This game unfortunately had a rough start when it first came out. Reviewers didn't really like it, but now people are starting to see it's actually pretty good. The problem is, Days Gone doesn't make a great first impression. At the beginning, a lot of weird stuff is thrown at you. The main character's name is Deacon St. Jr., which sounds like a joke. The zombies are called Freakers, which is stupid. The start of the story is boring, and Deke, the main guy, isn't very likable at first. He's always angry and muttering to himself. But if you keep playing, it gets better. The story picks up and introduces more characters that aren't so annoying, Deke starts to calm down, and the gameplay gets more exciting. At number 8, we have XCOM 2. It's not a weird or boring game, but it's really hard, even on normal difficulty. Most people start a new game, play for a few hours, and end up in a situation where they can't win and have to start at the beginning again. Those few hours are really tough. You have very limited resources, and not many soldiers. If one of your good soldiers gets injured, then you are in big trouble. At number 7 is The Last Guardian, a PlayStation exclusive from 2016. Depending on what you ask, this game is either a total mess or a brilliant masterpiece. Even those who love it admit it's hard to get into. So one thing we expect from games is consistency. When you press a button, you expect a specific action. But The Last Guardian breaks this rule on purpose. You play as a kid, and most puzzles involve guiding a huge creature named Trico. You press a button, but it doesn't listen. This can be really frustrating, especially when you know what you want Trico to do, but Trico just won't cooperate. And at number 6 is Prey, a game that makes a great first impression. The opening sequence is one of the best ever, but just after the prologue, it seems average. The controls feel a bit clunky, the story seems basic, but as you play more and more, the game gets much more interesting. What's unusual about Prey is that you don't realize the potential of all your abilities right away. The glue gun, for example, can slow down enemies, but also it can create makeshift stairs to reach new places, which you didn't know in the beginning. The game doesn't tell you what to do, it adapts to your actions. And at number 5, we have No Man's Sky. No Man's Sky was a game that faced a lot of hate when it first launched because of the huge gap between what was promised and what was delivered. The devs talked about a vast living universe with endless exploration, diverse planets, exciting encounters. However, when the game was released, it was repetitive and lacking in content. No Man's Sky was also plagued with bugs, crashes, and performance issues, especially on the PC platform, which made the game frustrating to play for many and led to a lot of negative reviews and backlash from the community. But fortunately, No Man's Sky was updated and significant improvements were made. They added new features, improved gameplay, and addressed many of the initial criticism. So as a result, the game has gained a dedicated following and is now viewed much more positively. And at number 4, we have Final Fantasy XIV. It faced significant criticism and backlash from players and critics alike. One reason was because of crashes, server issues, and graphical problems. Another problem was the confusing gameplay systems. Final Fantasy XIV featured complex mechanics and a confusing user interface, which was very difficult for new players to understand and enjoy the game. The game's pacing was also criticized, with many feeling that it was too slow and tedious, especially in early hours. But despite its rocky start, Final Fantasy XIV underwent a major major overhaul with the release of A Realm Reborn expansion. This expansion addressed many of the game's initial issues, including the technical issues, gameplay mechanics, and story. And as a result, Final Fantasy XIV became one of the most popular and critically acclaimed MMORPGs on the market, with a dedicated fanbase and regular content updates keeping the game fresh and engaging. And at number 3, we have Star Wars Battlefront 2, which faced a wave of criticism when it was released due to several key issues. One of the big complaints and problems that gamers had was the game's implementation of loot boxes and microtransactions. You could not win if you didn't buy these loot boxes. This led to accusations of the game being unfair and unbalanced. And also, players had to earn in-game currency to unlock characters and items, which was a slow and grindy process. This, coupled with the pay-to-win system, frustrated many players and led to the negative reception. But despite these issues, the developers DICE made efforts to address the criticism and improve the game. They overhauled the progression system to remove the pay-to-win elements and revamped the game's economy to make it more player-friendly. These changes, along with additional content updates and improvements, helped to gradually improve the game's reputation over time. And at number 2, we have Dead Rising. The main thing people hate about this game is the time limit. If a game had a big blinking time limit, it's probably going to be annoying at first. Dead Rising has this time limit throughout the whole series that start off super weak and slow with zombies everywhere. Trying to keep up with the time limit in this game is really hard, and most people end up running out of time and failing or getting killed by the annoying convicts in the park. Those guys are the worst. The game starts slow and frustrating, and the ticking clock makes it even worse. But after a few hours, it gets a lot more fun. Frank gets stronger, learns new moves to deal with zombies, the inventory gets bigger, and you find where the best weapons are, and so the fights get really easier. And finally, at number 1, it's the Soul series. Shocker. Usually it goes like this. You're playing the game, dying all the time and feeling miserable. You're super careful because you don't want to die and lose all of your souls. And when you die, it feels like you've lost all of your progress. Losing a bunch of souls can be a breaking point where lots of people just want to never come back. Some people eventually try again, and with patience or maybe a few YouTube searches, they start to understand how the game works. The funny thing is that this process hasn't changed much over the years. Each game has its own unique mechanics that can be confusing and aren't fully explained. Sekiro, for example, has this thing called Dragon Rot. If you die too much, certain NPCs get sick and you can't interact with them. That alone can scare people away. These games are tough and can be really frustrating, but they're also really good. It might just take a while to understand what you're getting into. Constantly dying can make it hard to enjoy, but once it clicks, it's amazing. And that's all for today. Leave us a comment and let us know what you think. Smash the like button, and if you like these types of content, subscribe.